You know that highly specific moment, usually right around like 6:30 or 7 in the morning?
The worst time.
Right. The alarm goes off and the entire concept of human productivity just seems completely irrational. I mean, the bed is warm, the world outside is cold, and then you smell it.
The coffee.
The coffee. Suddenly the impossible becomes possible. Your feet hit the floor. And right there, in that tiny kind of mundane moment, we're actually witnessing the absolute core of behavioral psychology.
We really are. It is the purest form of motivation in action.
Yeah.
It's the biological why behind the movement. I mean, the anticipated reward of that caffeine and the warmth literally initiates the motor function to just get you out of bed.
And that biological why is exactly what we are unpacking for you, our resident learner listening right now. Today, we're jumping into a deep dive on a really brilliant framework about human drive.
It's a fascinating one, too.
It really is, because the material we are analyzing today was actually originally designed as an English language learning resource. But hiding inside these everyday examples of vocabulary is just an absolute masterclass in behavioral psychology.
Completely. We are looking at the actual mechanics of motivation.
Right, not just what it is, but the neurological reasons why it just vanishes into thin air. And more importantly, the specific systematic ways we can sort of hotwire our brains to get it back.
Which is so crucial.
Yeah, whether you are trying to learn a new language, tackle a tough project at work, or honestly just survive a weekend of chores. So before we can fix broken motivation, we kind of have to understand what it actually is, right?
Exactly. I mean, we all know the standard intrinsic versus extrinsic debate.
Oh, sure.
The classic idea of doing something for the love of it versus doing it for an external reward.
Yeah.
But what this framework does so brilliantly is, well, it strips away that academic superiority complex.
I am so glad we're starting there. Because I often feel like there's this weird pressure to have a deep spiritual intrinsic connection to absolutely everything we do.
Right, like if you don't love it, it's wrong.
Yes. Like if you aren't doing the work purely for the love of the craft, somehow your motivation is, I don't know, dirty or less valid. But the examples we're looking at completely validate that outside drive.
They really do. The source uses plain language, calling them inside and outside motivation.
Which is so much more approachable.
Totally. They paint a picture of a woman working at a garden center. And sure, she has that inside motivation, that deep love for plants and nature. The work brings her calm.
But her engine is also heavily fueled by the outside validation, right?
Exactly. It's the amazing feeling when a customer lights up and says, "Thank you, that plant is perfect."
But wait, let me push back playfully here for a second. Is it okay if our motivation is like incredibly basic or purely external? Is inside motivation inherently better?
Well, biologically speaking, your brain does not care about the philosophical purity of your motivation.
Wait, really?
Really, it only cares about dopamine. Inside and side aren't opposing forces at all.
Yeah.
They're just different fuel tanks feeding the exact same engine.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
There's another scenario detailed in the source about someone whose entire motivation for getting through a grueling work week is literally just the anticipation of having a, quote, happy stomach from eating snacks on the weekend.
Which is incredibly relatable. I mean, I'd argue it's just as valid of a behavioral driver as wanting to write the great American novel.
Oh, for sure.
Sometimes you don't need a profound inner calling. Sometimes you literally just need the promise of a pizza to get the gears turning.
Exactly. The danger doesn't lie in relying on outside motivation. The danger is how fragile that external fuel tank can be.
Right. Because if it goes away, you're stuck.
Right. When your motivation is entirely anchored to an outside variable, you are highly vulnerable. If that variable changes, you experience a sudden, catastrophic drop in drive.
It's like the story of Jack. Jack's situation in the source is just the perfect case study for this. His motivation for learning Spanish was crystal clear. He was going on a holiday to Spain.
The ultimate outside motivation.
Exactly. He wanted to know how to order food, ask where the beach is, all that. Then the trip gets canceled, no holiday. And his motivation to study Spanish just evaporates. Poof.
Just poof. And let's look at the mechanics of that poof. Why does the brain do that?
I would love to know, because it feels like a betrayal.
Well, your brain is actually an incredibly stingy accountant when it comes to energy expenditure. It is constantly calculating the caloric cost of an action against the anticipated payoff.
Oh, wow. So it's basically doing a cost-benefit analysis.
Exactly. For Jack, learning Spanish was a high-cost cognitive task. As long as a payoff, a fun trip to Spain, was on the calendar, the brain released the dopamine required to fund that effort.
But the moment the trip is canceled?
The anticipated reward dropped to zero. The accountant shuts off the funding immediately. Jack didn't become lazy. His neurological budget was just reallocated.
That is so freeing to hear. But Jack feels understandably sad for a week, grieving the lost trip. But then he does something that completely bypasses the accountant.
He pivots.
Yes, he pivots. He realizes he has a Spanish-speaking friend named Carlos, so he creates a brand new goal. He just wants to learn enough Spanish to be able to tell Carlos a joke and make him laugh.
It's brilliant. He essentially hot wires his own cognitive reward system. He swaps out a massive, fragile outside goal for a highly personal inside goal.
Making a friend laugh.
Yeah. It highlights a critical shift in mindset, which is that motivation is allowed to change. It can shapeshift. We often fall into the trap of thinking that if the original reason disappears, the project itself just has to die.
Right. We view the lost goal as a failure rather than just an empty fuel tank that needs, a different grade of gas.
Exactly.
But let me throw a slightly different problem at you. What happens when the goal hasn't vanished and you still want the outcome, but you are paralyzed by the dreaded zero motivation problem?
The absolute zero.
Yeah, like we've all stared down the reality of a messy apartment on a Saturday. You know a clean home is a happy home. You want it clean, but the motivation is zero. You just want to sit on the couch and watch football.
That is a classic cognitive trap. And it's actually rooted in the brain's threat response.
Wait, really? A threat response?
Yes. When you look at a messy apartment and think, I need to clean this whole place, your visual cortex is sending an overwhelming amount of data to your prefrontal cortex. The brain calculates the massive caloric expenditure required.
So it panics.
Your amygdala actually flags this massive chore as a threat to your energy reserves.
It's treating the vacuum cleaner like a predator.
In a metabolic sense, yes. Procrastination in this scenario isn't a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism to protect you from exhausting yourself.
Which perfectly explains the brilliance of the strategy provided in this source. You don't try to summon the willpower to fight your own amygdala. You just shrink the threat.
Exactly. Shrink it down.
You tell yourself, I am not cleaning the apartment. I am going to clean this one coffee table for exactly 5 minutes. And then immediately after, you get to watch football.
Shrinking the task bypasses those alarm bells. 5 minutes of effort just doesn't register as a metabolic threat. But the real magic happens after those 5 minutes.
Right, because by finishing the coffee table, you get a micro hit of dopamine. It reminds me of how paralyzing massive goals can be, like, I don't know, becoming perfectly fluent in English or something.
Or mastering a complex new software at work.
Exactly. They are like this giant, scary mountain. You stand at the bottom, look up, and the scale of it causes total paralysis. You don't even lace up your boots.
The sheer verticality of the mountain triggers that exact same threat response.
So you find a tiny, small hill that's easy to climb. You don't focus on fluency. You focus on learning just 3 words for food today.
Just 3 words.
Yeah. You climb that tiny hill, and then you immediately apply a reward. A cup of tea, a funny video. That micro hit of dopamine physically builds the chemical momentum you need to look for the next tiny hill.
You are literally manufacturing your own momentum. But we do have to address the pests that get into this.
Runs out of gas.
Yes, this is where ambition hits the wall of reality.
And the framework uses a delightfully bizarre but perfectly accurate metaphor here, the quest to make the perfect omelet.
It is such a funny example, but it works so well.
It really does. Your ambition is the grand vision. I will master the culinary arts, starting with the perfect, fluffy French omelet, and next the perfect soup. You have the inspiration, you have the drive, you crack the eggs.
And the first 10 omelets are rubbery, burnt, and disgusting.
Exactly. The initial motivation is entirely gone. And this is where perseverance takes over. Perseverance isn't motivation. It's what you rely on when motivation is dead.
It is the grit required to cook and probably eat 10 terrible omelets because you refuse to abandon the ambition.
It's the shock absorber for failure. And pushing through that friction is what finally leads to fulfillment, which is distinct from just finishing a task. It's that deep, resonant satisfaction of finally eating the perfect omelet.
But we have to be realistic here. Not every task has a deep purpose or leads to profound fulfillment.
That's true.
What happens when the work is just studying dry grammar rules or organizing spreadsheets? There's no beautiful sunrise. There's no perfect omelet.
This brings us to my absolute favorite strategy in the entire framework manufacturing incentives.
It's so clever.
It really is. When a task is naturally devoid of dopamine, you have to artificially inject it. You have to gamify the grind.
Right, and instead of it's just an external carrot. If the environment doesn't provide one, you construct it yourself.
And the example given is a masterclass in bypassing that apathy we talked about. A group is struggling to learn English grammar. It's tedious, apathy is setting in, so they change the parameters. The goal is no longer learn the past tense. The goal is to learn just enough grammar to write a completely absurd story about a cat who becomes a chef.
The cat chef protocol.
Yes, the cat chef. They manufacture the incentive. They get to read this ridiculous story out loud to each other in funny voices. By linking a dry, boring task to something inherently creative and silly, they fundamentally trick the brain into engagement.
Neurologically, what they've done is shift the cognitive load from the rigid regions of the prefrontal cortex into the more playful regions of the brain. The grammar rule ceases to be the focus. It simply becomes the necessary tool required to unlock the dopamine of the funny story.
It's a brilliant hack. We've decoded a massive amount of behavioral machinery here today. We've looked at how inside and outside fuels combine, how the brain drops motivation when goals vanish, and how shrinking a task bypasses the threat response.
And we've seen how comparison is a pest, and how gamifying a boring task can resurrect a dead drive.
It's a powerful toolkit. But the framework closes with a really beautiful synthesizing analogy that brings all these mechanical parts into something much more organic.
It really is lovely. It suggests we stop viewing motivation as a fire that you light once, hoping it burns forever.
Because fires eventually burn out. Instead, we should view our motivation as a garden.
A garden requires active, ongoing participation. The seed is your first idea, that initial inspiration.
And the act of watering that seed, those are your small daily actions, your perseverance, climbing the tiny hills and cleaning the coffee table for 5 minutes.
Exactly. Every garden experiences sunny days. Those are the days you wake up full of drive, where the tasks feel effortless. But the most crucial part of this shift is how we handle the cloudy, rainy days.
The days where it feels like nothing is happening. You're tired, you have apathy. The beauty of the garden analogy is the reminder that even on the cloudy days when you can't see the progress on the surface, the plant is still growing beneath the soil.
You just have to maintain the boundaries. You protect it from pests, which means actively blocking out social comparison and forgiving your own Chapter 1 efforts.
And the most forgiving part of this entire framework, if a plant dies, if a goal vanishes like a canceled trip to Spain, it isn't a failure of your character. It just means the season changed.
You simply clear the soil and you plant a new seed. It's okay to do that. Your mental garden is capable of holding countless different plants over a lifetime.
It completely removes the guilt from the trial and error process of human growth. So to you, the learner listening right now, taking the time to dissect these frameworks and pursue growth is brave.
It really is.
It requires vulnerability to try, and we hope you take a moment to be proud of yourself, especially on the cloudy days. And if you found value in this deep dive, please subscribe to the channel, like and share this video, and tell us your opinion in the comments. We love hearing from you.
Keep watering the soil. Respect your brain's energy budget, and don't hesitate to shrink the mountain into a hill.
And as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to carry into the rest of your day. Take a mental walk through your own garden right now. We all have one tiny seed of an interest, maybe a dormant hobby, or a new skill you've wanted to learn that you've been neglecting because it felt too small or silly, or the mountain just looked too tall.
What is that neglected seed for you?
And more importantly, what is one 5-minute coffee table action you could take today to start watering it? Because you never know what kind of momentum might spark. It might just start with something as simple as the smell of morning coffee.
Until next time.